a heart surgeon worth $2 billion who hunts for the cheapest scrubs in the building. A man who once survived some days on a single meal, now sitting on a fortune, still living like he has nothing. A 92-year-old doctor who could retire to a private island tomorrow but instead gets up and goes to the office every single morning. These are some of the richest doctors in Asia, and almost none of them look the part. But here's the strange part. The way they pinch pennies isn't the real story. The real story is what they did with the money. Because while the rest of the world chased bigger houses and faster cars, these men used their fortunes to do something almost nobody in medicine had ever dared to try. This is Asian Dynasty, from the village boy who built an empire out of one cheap blood test, all the way to the surgeon who figured out how to repair a human heart for the price of a smartphone. Every doctor on this list is hiding a secret about money, and they'd happily teach it to you for free, because to them, being rich was never about spending. It was about a number, how many people they could reach, how cheap they could make the impossible, how many lives they could touch before the clock ran out. So stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll see the single pattern that connects every one of them, and it has nothing to do with being cheap. Let's count them down. Our first doctor is worth more than $2.5 billion, and he built that fortune selling a remedy your grandmother would recognize. Number 5. Dr. Wu Yiling. Born in 1949 in Hebei, China, Wu was the son of a doctor raised around traditional Chinese medicine before he could even read. He trained at Hebei Medical University in Nanjing, became one of the very first master's students in his field, and then spent about 11 years doing the unglamorous work, treating heart patients inside a provincial hospital. Then in 1992, he made his move. He founded Yiling Pharmaceutical with a single radical idea: take the ancient herbal remedies of Chinese medicine and rebuild them with modern science. His company's most famous product, a herbal capsule used across China for colds and flu, turned into a fortune worth billions. But here's what makes Wu different. Most men, the second they make their first billion, walk out of the lab forever. Wu never left. He became an academician of the Chinese Academy of Engineering. He's still a professor, still a doctoral supervisor, still publishing more than 6,000 research papers. The money made him one of the richest figures in Chinese medicine. It never once made him stop being a doctor. That's the first version of frugal wealth on this list. Not a man who refuses to spend, a man who refuses to leave the work that made him. For Wu, the white coat was never a costume. It was the entire point. And if Wu never left the laboratory, our next doctor never left the village he came from, no matter how much money landed in his account. He grew up so poor that some days the whole family ate one meal. Today, he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and he still lives like the boy who had nothing. Number 4, Dr. A. Velumani. He was born in 1959 in a village near Coimbatore, India, into a landless farmer's family. Real poverty, long walks to school, days that ended on a single meal. In 1995, he took 1 lakh rupees, a tiny sum scraped from his savings, and set up a small laboratory to test for thyroid disorders. His obsession was simple: take a test that cost a small fortune and make it so cheap that India's poorest could finally afford it. That little lab became ThyroCare, one of the largest diagnostic chains in the country, and it made him worth more than $300 million. And here's the part that matters. In the early years, he paid himself nothing. Every rupee went straight back into the company. And even now, a man who could buy almost anything will tell you that he and his family still live a simple life. The fortune changed his bank balance. It never changed him. His doctorate is in science, not surgery. But in the world of Indian medicine, Dr. Velumani earned every letter of that title. That's the Velumani model. Get rich by making something expensive cheap, and never let the money convince you that you've become a different person. Our next doctor took that exact same idea, make the impossible affordable, but he did it with his own 2 hands, inside the human chest. He has opened more than 48,000 human hearts. Let that number sit for a second, 48,000. Number 3, Dr. Naresh Trehan. Trehan is a cardiovascular surgeon who trained in India, then went to America. And from 1971 to 1988, he operated at NYU Medical Center in Manhattan, becoming one of the most respected heart surgeons in the United States. He could have stayed there, rich and comfortable for the rest of his life. Instead, he came home. He built the Escorts Heart Institute, and then in 2007, he opened Medanta, one of the largest hospitals in all of India. Today, he's worth around $1.5 billion and sits on the Forbes list of the world's billionaires. But here's the thing about Trehan. You'd expect a man who has performed 48,000 open heart surgeries, a man worth well over $1 billion, to finally coast, to put down the scalpel and just count the money. He didn't. He kept operating, because for him, the wealth was only ever a side effect. The work was the addiction. And that's the pattern starting to form. For these doctors, money was never the finish line. It was just what happened while they refused to stop. And no one refused to stop quite like our next man, because he is still doing it at 92 years old. He is 92 years old. He is worth $3.5 billion. And tomorrow morning, like every morning, he will get up and go to the office. Number 2, Dr. Prathap C. Reddy. Born in 1933, Reddy is a cardiologist who, in 1983, opened a single 150-bed hospital and called it Apollo. The idea behind it was, at the time, almost unthinkable. Build world-class hospitals inside India so that Indians would no longer have to fly across the world or simply die waiting, just to get the kind of care the wealthy West took for granted. That one hospital became an empire. Today, Apollo is 71 hospitals, more than 5,000 pharmacies, hundreds of clinics, over 10,000 beds. India honored him with 2 of its highest civilian awards, the Padma Bhushan and the Padma Vibhushan. A man with that fortune at that age owes the world absolutely nothing. He could disappear into luxury and no one would blame him. Instead, at 92, he still reports to work every single day, still chewing on the same question he started with 60 years ago. How do we reach more people? The wealth bought him the right to stop. He has simply never taken it. That's the Reddy model. Build the thing your country is missing, and then never ever walk away from it, not even at 92. Which brings us finally to number 1, the doctor who took this entire philosophy, make the impossible cheap, give your whole life to the work, and pushed it further than anyone thought was even possible. He performs heart surgery for around $800. The exact same operation in an American hospital can cost more than $100,000. He is worth $2 billion. And he buys the cheapest scrubs in the building. Number 1, Dr. Devi Shetty. Shetty is a cardiac surgeon and the founder of Narayana Health. He has personally performed more than 15,000 heart operations. Early in his career, he was the doctor who treated Mother Teresa, and her example quietly rewired how he saw his entire profession. He came back from his training abroad with one obsession that sounded completely insane to everyone around him. What if heart surgery, the most expensive, highest-stakes operation in all of medicine, could be made cheap enough for the poorest person in India to afford? So he ran his hospitals like nobody else on earth. The Wall Street Journal called him the Henry Ford of heart surgery. Others call it the Walmart of heart surgery. He negotiates directly with the equipment makers. He buys cheaper scrubs. He strips the air conditioning out of the wards and uses cross-ventilation instead. And his surgeons don't do 1 or 2 operations a day like in the West. They do 30 to 35. Sheer volume drives the cost into the ground. The result? An operation that runs more than $106,000 at the Cleveland Clinic. He performs for around $800, and he has openly said he wants to push it even lower. He's now worth $2 billion with dozens of hospitals and an international branch all the way out in the Cayman Islands. Think about that. A man who can make a stopped heart beat again. A man worth $2 billion, still fighting over the price of a set of scrubs, not to fatten his own fortune, but to drop the price for a stranger he will never meet. That's the whole philosophy in a single human being. Devi Shetty didn't get rich and then give back. Giving people care they could actually afford was the business. The fortune was just the proof that it worked. So look at the pattern, because it's the exact opposite of what the title promised you. These men don't live like they're poor because they're cheap. Wu never left his research. Velumani never left his village mindset. Trehan never put down the scalpel. Reddy never stopped showing up. And Shetty fights over the cost of scrubs so that a poor family can afford a beating heart. The frugality isn't the story. It's a symptom. When the work is the thing you actually love, the money stops being something you spend on yourself and turns into a number you measure in other people's lives. And just so we're honest with each other, it doesn't always go this way. The single richest doctor on the entire planet, Patrick Soon-Shiong, a brilliant transplant surgeon who invented a cancer drug and sold 2 companies for billions, is worth somewhere between $6 and $16 billion. He owns the Los Angeles Times. He lives in an opulent estate. He is living proof that a doctor can absolutely choose the mansion. The men on this list simply chose something else. And that's the real lesson hiding inside this whole video. We started by laughing at the billionaire who buys cheap scrubs and the man worth millions who still eats like he's broke. But maybe they understand something the rest of us don't. Maybe being rich was never about how much you can spend on yourself. Maybe it's about how many people you can lift with what you've built. Every one of these doctors had the money to vanish into luxury. Every single one of them looked at that option and chose the work, the patience, the mission. Instead, they don't live like they're poor. They live like the money was never the point. And by every measure that actually lasts, they might just be the richest people in this entire story. So here's my question for you. Drop it in the comments. Out of all of them, which doctor surprised you the most? The village boy who never changed, or the 92-year-old who still refuses to stop? And if you want to see how this exact same mindset built some of the biggest fortunes in tech, go watch our breakdown of the richest Asian tech founders who live like they're broke. It's the same secret in a completely different world. I'll see you over there.